beginning of hope to all of you, my dear friends. Nowruz Firuz, Payonde Iran.
Looking at the first video, do you notice anything unusual? Do you think this is AI or a real person? Could this be the reappearance of President Netanyahu? Speculation has been spreading as details emerge suggesting the use of AI. In the video, his hand no longer features the sixth finger seen in previous controversial images, but the ring on his hand disappears at the 26-second mark and reappears just a second later. Such small discrepancies in the context of increasingly sophisticated deepfake technology immediately become evidence for many to lean toward the hypothesis that the entire video may have been generated by AI. In the latest video, the office of President Netanyahu posted his greetings to the Iranian people on the occasion of Nowruz, marking the Persian New Year. This is already the third video posted by the Israeli Prime Minister's office within 24 hours, following the spread of rumors on social media that President Netanyahu had been killed in an Iranian missile strike. Previously, waves of speculation broke out, moving beyond the authenticity of the videos released by the country to a broader question. Is President Netanyahu actually still alive? And if he is alive, why the need to use AI-generated videos? Conversely, if, as rumored, he might have died in an attack, why would nations need to prove he is still alive? Notably, the more videos released to prove his presence, the more public skepticism grows. The issue, therefore, no longer lies with a specific individual or a particular video clip. It reflects a worrying reality. In the AI era, when every image can be manipulated, the very concept of visual evidence, once considered the most reliable, is gradually losing its value. From a controversial video, public attention quickly shifted to a much more sensitive question. What would happen if a high-ranking leader actually disappeared? Or worse, if their existence could no longer be confirmed with certainty? For President Netanyahu, the issue does not stop at the individual level. In modern power structures, especially in tense regions like the Middle East, a leader is not just an administrator, but the anchor for the entire political, security, and trust system. When that anchor is questioned, even just in terms of information, the entire system immediately falls into a state of potential instability. In Israel, the presence of President Netanyahu, though highly controversial, remains linked to the relative equilibrium of the power apparatus. He is not only the prime minister, but also the center of a network of political factions and interests that are already very complex. A power vacuum, if it appeared suddenly, could trigger a series of chain reactions, from internal disputes to risk of misalignment in security decisions. Even if these scenarios have not yet occurred, the mere fact that they become possible is enough to destabilize the system. At the international level, particularly with the US, President Netanyahu holds a different significance. He is a difficult but familiar partner, and that familiarity allows policymakers to predict behavior. And Israel, under the leadership of President Netanyahu, despite many disagreements, remains an entity that Washington still needs. Conversely, a power vacuum or a new figure with an unclear stance would force the US to rebuild its entire approach, while the region is already volatile enough. With Iran, the logic operates in a confrontational but equally pragmatic direction. A specific opponent with a clear profile like President Netanyahu is actually easier to define in a long-term strategy. He is not just the head of the Israeli government, but also a symbol of a hardline path that Tehran is accustomed to dealing with. When the subject of confrontation becomes ambiguous or disappears under suspicion, the strategic puzzle immediately becomes more unpredictable. In many cases, the existence of a familiar adversary helps maintain a state of controlled tension rather than pushing everything into a zone of uncertainty. Viewed from those perspectives, what stands out is not President Netanyahu himself, but the way the system operates. An individual can become the convergence point for many layers of interests, conflicts, and expectations. When this convergence point is doubted, even through a video clip or a visual detail, the entire structure surrounding it is affected accordingly. The consequences do not stop at a specific rumor. It creates a state in which official information is no longer trusted by default, formal responses are no longer persuasive enough, and the public is pushed into a position of having to evaluate information themselves while lacking the tools to do so with certainty. In other words, AI is not just creating fake news, it is undermining the foundation for determining what is true. When that foundation is shaken, every system based on trust, from politics to media, is affected. A leader may still exist and govern, but as soon as their image is doubted, their legitimacy in the eyes of the public begins to erode. Conversely, even if the information is false, the inability to persuasively refute it allows it to persist as a form of parallel truth. That is the core issue of the present moment. Truth is no longer self-evident, but has become something that must be constantly verified, and in many cases, a final conclusion cannot be reached. Rumors of President Benjamin Netanyahu's assassination did not originate from any clear official source, but spread through the familiar mechanisms of the social media era. A controversial image, a few initial speculations, and then rapid amplification into a plausible-sounding scenario. Notably, instead of being extinguished by official information, these rumors proved more resilient precisely because of the efforts to debunk them. The videos released by President Netanyahu's side, filmed in everyday settings like a coffee shop, were supposed to serve as direct evidence that he was fine. But the online community's reaction went in the opposite direction. These clips were not received as explanations, but were subjected to a process of detailed dissection. Every frame was scrutinized, every movement was questioned. Two prominent details quickly became the focus. Previously, it was the sixth finger image, a common visual error in AI products, but enough to trigger large-scale suspicion. Later, in the new video, the ring on his hand disappeared and then reappeared in a split second. To an ordinary person, that might just be a lighting error or camera angle, but in a context where trust has been eroded, such details are no longer harmless. They become traces, and from those traces, people construct entire hypotheses. It is worth noting that this process does not require solid evidence. It operates based on a sense of plausibility. An unusual detail leads to suspicion. Suspicion leads to a search for more anomalies, and the more one searches, the more one finds. At that point, any attempt at explanation is easily interpreted as hiding something. This is the dangerous tipping point. The more one refutes, the more suspicion increases. This phenomenon is not limited to one individual or one event. It reflects a much broader issue, the crisis of trust in the age of AI. Deepfake technology does not merely create fake images. More importantly, it weakens the value of real images. Previously, a video might not have told the whole truth, but at least it was still seen as evidence of an event that occurred. Today, even that foundation is no longer certain. The principle of seeing is believing was once one of the basic pillars of public perception. But when technology can recreate faces, voices, and gestures with increasing accuracy, that principle begins to collapse. A video no longer automatically brings credibility. On the contrary, it becomes the first object of suspicion. The consequences of this shift are spreading in many directions. First is the decline of trust in leadership. When a leader's image can be questioned over a few technical details, their legitimacy in the eyes of the public becomes more fragile. Next is the decline of trust in the media. Channels that once served to verify and provide information are now caught in the vortex of suspicion, as they themselves rely on visual data that is no longer absolutely reliable. In this context, each individual is pushed into a new role, evaluating and verifying information for themselves. But the problem is that the public lacks the professional tools to do this accurately. As a result, a paradox emerges. Everyone has the right to doubt, but no one truly has the ability to conclude. From here, the big question gradually comes into clearer focus. If even video, once considered the most powerful visual evidence, is no longer trustworthy, how will the boundary between truth and falsehood be defined? When everything can be doubted, does truth still exist as a common ground for society to rely on, or will it be fragmented into many different versions depending on the beliefs of each group.